Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's very nice
So,
to hear you.
my name's Tracy. I am registered severely sight impaired. My eye condition is retinitis pigmentosa. I am the chairman of the board of directors for the Berry Society for Blind and Partially Sighted People. I'm also on the board of the Berry Met Theatre. So my
Mhm.
passion is that the arts, all of the arts, should be accessible to all. So obviously, if I narrow that down, I'm focusing on visual impairments. And my local theatre has a pantomime every year, which I go to with my daughter. It's only a small theatre, so they don't have any audio description. So we try and sit fairly near the front, so I do have some sight. But my daughter at the side of me is my little audio describer. If there are little things that I need to know that I've perhaps missed,
Mhm.
um, but yes, we thoroughly enjoy going to the Panto. We love all the fun of it. Yeah.
And it tends to be one of the traditional ones, because obviously there are certain scripts that go around the country
Yeah,
and
yeah.
are replicated in every theatre, but depending on
It is.
their budget, whether they can have
Yeah,
amazing costumes.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. They do pick, like Aladdin. This year it's Pied Piper of Hamelin, but they adapt it. I think this year the Pied Piper is living in Bury. Do you know what I mean? They adapt the script to
For the
our
local.
town. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh, very good.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So you sit near the front to get as much
Mhm.
out of it as you possibly can. Is
Correct.
there anybody in the group who does go to to Pantos? Because what I always find, and I am sighted, but I'm amazed by the noise level. So one of the things that we do, obviously, with every show is to do an intro. Well, quite difficult doing an intro when there are hundreds of screaming kids all excited and waving their little wands and all the things they're doing. To actually be able to concentrate on a voice speaking to you and telling you what Widow Twanky is wearing, or, one of those things. So I'm always of the view that I tend to do it on the hoof. Basically, I describe as I see, and some of these are kind of rather complex and pare them down because I don't believe that one can listen to me and to what's going on around you and get much out of it. But I may be wrong on this, so I'd like to hear it from you. Really, what you think?
Well, let me introduce myself while
Hello.
we're doing this. So, and I'll answer some of those questions if you like. Yeah, my name's John. I am severely sight impaired, registered. I too have retinitis pigmentosa. Um,
Mhm.
I've been to a few pantomimes over the years, and obviously over that time period, my eyesight has got worse. So when I go now, the audio description is getting more and more essential, really. But I've never been to an audio described pantomime at all. Again, very, very similar. Is it Charlene or Charmaine? Sorry,
Tracy.
you know.
Tracy.
Tracy.
Mhm.
My local theatres are not big enough, really, probably to have, or I've never had audio description. So, and that's the pantomimes we tend to go to. Um, I would say exactly that. They're quite fun environments, and getting the audio description in may be difficult because there's a lot happening all the time.
Mm.
And again, now I think if I needed to know anything and there was an AD, one of my family would whisper in my ear what was going on. So, but a lot of it's because there's a lot of dialogue.
Mm.
And it's quite. I find them quite easy to follow. Um, Even without the AD, because they follow a traditional structure.
Well, exactly. I
But
mean,
it's the colourful nature of it and what they're wearing and the odd bit of direction on the stage that you need to know.
mm, mm. which is
Yeah.
which is why a touch tour is actually, it's
Mm,
almost like in your local theatre, yeah, if they could arrange for a touch tour,
Yes.
then that would cover a lot of it. Because if there were a few of you there who would normally need description, a touch tour doesn't cost anything. That can be organized by stage management. And basically, it gives you the opportunity to be on stage or near it and to take, to touch some of the props, to have a feel of the costumes. So you've got outrageous headdresses and things like that. But the best way to kind of know about them beforehand is to have them there. You hold them, you see how big they are, you see how shiny the wig is. You can feel it in your fingers. And if you've got some sight, well, obviously you see up close. Because of course, once the show starts, as you say, it's almost impossible to get in anything really useful because there's so much action going on. But the format, the fact that a lot of pantos are very much based on that format. So, like there's the ones Aladdin, which is set in a laundry, and then there's, Cinderella, which is at home, and then there's usually a bakery, and there's kind of things that you recognize, and particularly if you've seen panto in the past. So it's a familiar territory. So kind of, you're not going to see the unknown. But still, where do you get the description in? I think that, touch tours are the best thing. Plus, they're fun, half an hour before the thing starts.
Absolutely, really good fun, really helpful, all the touch tours I've been on. And also the performance notes, you could get a lot in there about what people were wearing and their description that we could read ahead of time.
Well, that you just made a point, very good point, which is that if it's a panto, then it's going to be running for a few weeks, which means that your describer or somebody could make some notes beforehand and make them available to you if you've booked, so that you can read them beforehand, not in the theatre on the day. Because as I say, on the day,
no.
the level of noise is such that you'd never hear a thing. So it would have to be that you get those notes beforehand, which we all do. I mean, the big organizations vocalize and stuff, can afford all that. So they send out notes and things like that beforehand. Smaller venues, more difficult. But if the venues are kind of keen to help and to become more accessible, it can be arranged. And it doesn't have to be high literature. It's just, introduce the characters, a little bit of what they look like and so on, so that when you come, what to expect.
I think that and the touch tour together would cover the vast majority of what you're looking for, even without the live AD, really.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like the other thing is that because people laugh, well, they should laugh. If it's funny, they should laugh. So again, suddenly there's a lot of hilarity going on. And then the audio describer suddenly comes in and says something. Well, you can't actually hear what they're saying because everyone is laughing. Plus, you want to join in the laughter as well. So a lot of the time, the AD can be a bit of an interruption. And I don't like that myself. I always try and hold back or find ways around it. So I mean, sometimes what I do in the interval, I'll run up to the group and say, well, did you get that? Did you get that? Did you get the bit the way when he dropped it and he fell on his bottom? Like sort of almost like making sure that everyone's on the page as to what has happened. Because when you're actually seeing it in front of you, it's quite hard to, interpose. Does anyone else have a view on that?
Introduce myself, Andre Gibson, Courtyard Theatre in Hereford. I'm a describer. Only been doing it for just over a year. My first performance was the pantomime last year. I enjoy the pantomime. I enjoy any show really, or just describing it, but the pantomime particularly because we have such a long period of notice to be able to prepare, because I find I work and I find it takes me 2 full days to work through something, to work out what can be said when and go through it multiple times. So I enjoy the pantomime, and it's also very well attended. This year we are expecting a record 40 visual impaired people.
Wow,
plus,
fantastic! What?
Sorry.
Plus their companions, or
plus companions. There's also the touch tour. The theatre is getting concerned because it's too many people to manage. So we may end up doing two.
I think that's the answer. I think you do that. You just divide them up, so they'll have to start a lot earlier.
Yeah,
and then you also have to. Sorry.
Unfortunately, the actors don't take part in the touch tour because of preparing for the show. But it's still very well attended and enjoyed as far as we know. Yes, it was very interesting listening to you so far about problems that people might be having hearing the introduction beforehand. We haven't heard any comments on that, but it's certainly something I'd like to look into, because during the show, there's so little time to actually say something. They always try to fill any gap with music.
Well, exactly. You're fighting all the different elements, the music and all of that. I think with your touch tour, you can certainly do two. One thing one has to look out for, of course, is that the dancers have their warm up, and every show these has warm ups. When I was doing a bit of the old acting, nobody did any warm ups at all, but that's a long time ago. But nowadays, for an hour or so, or at least half an hour, there's lots of prancing about. So you have to try and time the touch tour so that it doesn't interrupt their routine. But it can be done. I mean, if you want it to be done, it can be done. I think 20 on stage at any given time is the maximum that you can do safely without anybody falling off the stage and so on. 40 is fantastic. My goodness, what a wonderful thing. But so you'll be able to prepare some notes beforehand for that.
Yes, I take a video recording of the show, and then we split it and we do one act, and another colleague does another act. So we've got the recording to work through for in advance too. And yes, things change, and you've got to be prepared for that. Last year, I think I watched it about 5 times just to see what things there were changing. So yeah, it's good fun though.
Well, that sounds wonderful. You sound as if you are a very motivated volunteer. Are you a volunteer, or are you?
Yes, it's volunteer. Yes.
Yes. Well, you'll find when people become professional, when they're being paid, they won't turn up 5 times. But I mean, you're doing it because you really believe in it, and you're learning how to do it. So actually, the more you do it, the better you get, because you miss things. You can see something twice and you still miss something. So it's worth going if you've got the time to do it. But generally speaking, when someone does a professional AD, so like say the Palladium, which is the largest, it's one part of the entertainment group that does all of these things. There's only about 5 production companies that do all of these things, and they just throw lots of money at it. So at the Palladium, you would classically just go and see it, and then get the video, and then work off the video. And you can miss something. There's no doubt, because there's just so much going on. The question is, which I'd like to ask the panel, is how much of every detail do you think you need? Because I'd say you can't get every detail. Like, on screen, when you do screen AD, you can't give every detail, because actually every detail is not essential. So what do you feel about that?
No, I totally agree with you, Veronika, that sometimes you can be given too much information, and you want to get into the play or the show or the pantomime, whatever you're watching, on television and film. It's the same. Sometimes it's just too much audio description. It must be very hard for somebody like yourself to get that balance just right. I totally appreciate that.
I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm very sensitive to this, to the fact that people have got verbal diarrhea. Either they do that, or they feel, I must, as someone said, fill every gap and say something which I can't remember. It was some thriller. There's some terribly tight tension in the scene, and somebody said she eats breakfast. She eats some cereal from a bowl, and I thought, what's the point of telling the world that she's eating it from a bowl? She's having breakfast, and it's that thing of just too much. So back to Panto. Back to Panto. There's just a sort of minimum. So I think that if we have touch tours and we have pre-show notes, that's when you can get your detail in. But another question for yourselves, and I won't be sexist about this, but often women worry or are more interested in costume than men. That doesn't necessarily apply across the board. It's just that some of us are more interested in it than others. How much do you get from descriptions of costume and color if you have no sight? Hello?
I don't know if anybody else wants to speak. I don't want to be doing all the talking.
No, it would be interesting because it is a big thing. You know, you say to somebody who is blind, say, she's wearing a pink pom-pom. And they'll go, what is that? What is pink pom-pom?
For some, Charmaine, should I have a go at this stage?
Yeah, go
on. And as I said, I lost my sight 8 years ago. So, right. You know, and suddenly, so I was previously sighted. And like you say, I think it's whether you have an interest in costume or not. And, you know, we're all different. Some people might have more of an interest in what the characters are wearing. I personally, I'm not into that at all, unless it's part of the plot, in which case I'd want to know because I'd want to be able to understand the narrative. But like you said, Veronika, I think your light touch approach is, you know, less is more sometimes. And you really want the audio describers to just kind of give you light touch in terms of, you know, enjoying the vibe of the show, and as we said before, I think that was really important point that the pre-show notes and the touch door do a lot of the work, particularly in what I would say is quite a crazy environment of a pantomime. I like to feel quite grounded in the show and the theatre, you know, before it starts, and pre-show notes and the touch door often do that for me. So you just want that light bit of audio description just to keep you, you know, in tune with things that you need to know, someone that can't see very well. Yeah, so I wouldn't be so bothered about costume unless it was important in terms of the narrative or the slapstick or what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously colours and things can mean something to some people. So in the one I was doing last night, so the Ugly Sisters, it's very complicated. It's very on message, because a lot of shows now are quite on message, you know, to kind of reflect the world we live in. Anyway, so the Ugly Sisters wore incredibly bright colours, you know, like yellow and orange and red and that kind of thing. And then there'll be other characters who would be wearing pastel colours. So I think we all understand what that means, even if we don't necessarily know what it looks like. Is that fair to say? That if you're wearing muted colours, it says something about you, your character?
Yeah, and that's worth knowing. And I think another point is, I was talking to Ros earlier about going to see Stranger Things at the theatre earlier this year. And what I did get from that particular performance was they'd really used lighting really well. And similarly, I went to see My Neighbour Totoro with my youngest daughter, and they used really good use of colour contrast for that show. So with my little bit of residual eyesight, that contrast, that lighting makes a massive difference. Yes, if that, you know, with that kind of, obviously that's not audio description, but that really helps us to, if we do have some eyesight, that, you know, that really, really helps.
Exactly. But I think it has to be just a bit. So I'm thinking about the set that I was looking at last night. It turns. It's like a wonky cross-section of a building, and it turns. All you need to know is we're in the palace. We're back in the kitchen. I mean, you know, it's got to be, I think, very, very basic, but at least you know. But you can't actually spend any time giving any more detail whilst it's happening, really.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? But you're grounding us. You're giving us the, you know, short burst of information that we really need to know, and hopefully our imaginations can do the rest.
Absolutely. Well, there was a funny part. I was reading through some notes about pantomime. Do you know which side of the stage the pantomime villain comes on?
Is there always one side?
Yes. Well, there's always, in the traditional panto, you've got your villain and then you've got your fairy. You've got your fairy goodness fairy, you know, the one who helps things happen. So basically, it's interesting because in the business, you know, in the theatrical business, stage left and stage right is opposite to what you think it is. And actors use it. So I'm standing stage left means that to us, the audience, they're standing on the right.
Yeah.
How complicated is that? Anyway, from your point of view, from the audience's point of view, the fairy always comes in on the left and the villain always comes in on the right. But it's kind of nice to know that, really. And they do it. It's totally consistent that's what happens. Unless it's a subversive panto, in which case they switch it around.
I will look out for that next week, and I will see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or sometimes down from the sky. So what about when you have the dame, for example, in a traditional one? So again, this is where the touch tour, I think, does come in. I was thinking about the costumes that a dame, Widow Twankey, for example, she might have 7 costume changes.
Yeah.
So and they're all hilarious, and they're all larger than life, all of them. But again, you're not going to get it all. You can't be told everything. I'm just thinking one would make a list beforehand in the notes. Okay, sometimes she's wearing dishcloths. She's got a rolling pin hat. I mean, I don't know. You just have to kind of introduce it. But at the time, I think you just have to go with the flow because there's no silence there. They never stop talking. So
it's challenging, isn't it? It's Charmaine again. I'm going to contradict what I said previously now about again, there's no such thing, everyone's different, about not particularly wanting costume to be audio described. I went the one pantomime that I've seen since I've lost sight was it was a Wizard of Oz at the Radlett Centre in Watford, probably about 3 years ago, something like that, with my daughters, and I enjoyed being there with them. It wasn't audio described, but I think what I want to know is what I think a lot of us will relate to the frustrations of being blind or partially sighted. But if everyone else is really enjoying something and really having a laugh because something funny has happened, and it might be the costume, then we want to know what that is.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. That's why it's got to come in the notes, and sometimes you have to kind of prepare people for things. For example, there are all these songs that they do, where they sit on a bench and there's 3 of them, they're clapping their hands and there's a ghost or something like that who's tiptoeing behind them and it frightens one of them away and the song goes on and they're slapping their thighs and stuff. But quite hard to do it at the time. So I think one probably has to just introduce it before it happens. So this is the game that they play. Or oh gosh, what is that thing when they have all these different objects? They have all these different objects. They stand in a line and they have to mime. They have to mime doing something with that object, and then they take turns. And it's super complicated. And it may be that is something that will never be able to be explained sufficiently well. It's something like he comes in with a something, and da 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 da. He's somebody's got a drain cleaner, somebody's got a saucepan, somebody's got a vacuum cleaner, somebody's got a duster or whatever it is, and it's all these objects. So I'm thinking on my feet here. I'm thinking the only way that one can convey any of this is in those notes, and that if you have the time to make notes for an audience that won't get audio description, then they're going to get something out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to, I'm afraid, just miss out. In fact, I'm sure there's a book, actually. There must be a book about these sequences. In fact, that's true, because there are only a few scripts. These production companies, there are 260 pantos a year, and there are probably only about 6 scripts for each pantomime. I mean, obviously, the pantomime, you've got at least, the top ones are Little Mermaid, Wizard of Oz, Treasure Island, Snow White, Robin Hood, Rapunzel, Puss in Boots, Peter Pan, Cinderella, Babes in the Wood, all of those. So they do have scripts. And that might be something for an audio describer actually to do, is actually look up the script. Look up, and there might in fact be a description of some of these games, because they do them almost in every show. And so if you could be forewarned about what goes on in the game, then when it actually starts to happen, you can sit back and just enjoy the laughter. For example, who's going to see something? Who is going to see a panto soon? And
I'm
where's it going
going
to be?
to one next week. Yeah.
Oh, have I lost you? Which is which?
Can you hear me? Sorry. I'm going to a pantomime
Yes,
next week. Yes.
Yeah. What is it?
The Pied Piper of Hamelin.
The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Right. Now, does it star somebody famous off the telly?
No, it's just at my local theatre. It's a small theatre group.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, I think that's easier to just enjoy the whole thing. But a lot of the big productions, have someone off the telly. And I do sometimes wonder whether the visually impaired audience actually know who the someone off the telly is. What do you say about that? I mean, obviously, Chris Biggins is really famous, and there's some very, very famous ones who play the dames. But yeah, I mean, do you think that that's a piece of knowledge that one ought to have? You could say so and so was in I don't know, a television drama or something. What you normally have is that the Prince Charming tends to be someone off the telly. The heroine doesn't. She tends to be more of a musical theatre person. Sometimes she is, but sometimes she isn't. So you've got professional panto performers, and then you've got these stars that come in. So is it important for you to know what they've been in for you to appreciate them?
Yeah, I think you'd already know before
you
going
go
to that performance. You'd have got that information yourself. Who the cast were, especially if it's somebody famous. I think you would already know.
Yeah. Well, yes, obviously the posters are everywhere. The posters are everywhere, and your family or friends could tell you beforehand. Because I think that's a reason why some people go to certain pantos, don't they? They go more for the person who's off the telly than necessarily the panto. Would you agree? I mean, does anyone go to Birmingham or one of these big ones?
Occasionally, I've been to the one in Manchester, but I tend to just stay to my local theatre now.
Well, it tends to be more real. I think, it tends to be more kind of, it tells the story, doesn't it? A bit more than. Hello? Someone saying something? Hello? Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you.
I've got Tracy on. You can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
So there was right. So there was a gent wanting to say something, gentlemen. I thought.
Not me.
And who's you? Who's you?
Oh, Andre.
I see it. Oh, that's Andre. Andre who has got close cropped dark hair and wears spectacles and has a very friendly smile. That's what his icon's showing me. Yes. Very good. Now, how about the dancing? Now, this is one of the big ones as well that I'm always debating, because you have dance routines. So again, what do you feel, all of you, about having all the steps, as many, because there are bits of dancing sometimes when there isn't any singing, when it's just a musical interlude and dancers doing their thing. So how important you as audiences do you feel is it to know that they kick their legs up and wave their arms around and twirl around and lift each other and do all those things? How important is it for your enjoyment?
I think going back to what we were talking about previously, like too much information could be a bit overwhelming. But I think if we were told they were doing ballet or they were doing a waltz or tap dancing, I have enough knowledge to know what that would look like, if that makes sense.
So broad stroke description. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What about what do you do? Where's he gone? Our young describer. Where are you?
Andre. Yes, it's very
Andre,
difficult.
where are you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll turn my video back on. It's very difficult to get words in, even when there's just music going on without any speaking. I agree with the type of dance, ballet or whatever is something I always try to get in. Sometimes even advance introduction before it starts or before the act starts to explain when there's a dance that's going to be this or that, if it can't be done at the time. But yes, when possible, I do try to put in, they twirl around, they lift now, they partner up, but not overdo it. It's only going to be about 1% or 2% of the actual dance that I usually would say anything.
I mean, because there's always this conflict that actually, there is certain type of music you can talk over, when it's kind of background music. But actually, if it's foreground music, it is hard because you're competing with it. The audience is enjoying the music. So again, do they really want to have a voice talking over it? So yes, you just have to. I mean, the thing about description is it actually is much less, as someone would say. I've always said less is more. It's much less of a thing than it's being there. I think it's being there and knowing, what's important at that crucial moment. And it might be that you may only say, I don't know, 10 things in Act 1, but that's all you really need in order for people to know exactly that, the scene's moved, what's happened, they've gone inside. It's actually the physical things sometimes are more important than, because once they're chatting, that then you just let them, you just listen to what they're saying and listen to the narrative.
And with dance, I find often moves are repeated. So I think the second time round, I don't think there's a need to repeat what might have been said the first time round.
Yeah. You can see how many there are. Obviously, there tend to be 6 or 8, don't they, dancers? And yes, and their costumes can be, again, as extravagant as the budget will allow. And then there's lots of little children also now who participate from the local schools in sort of local pantomimes. All of that sort of stuff. What about when the presenter who is the buttons or whatever it is that the comedian invites kids from the audience to come on stage? Are you happy with just being told that they come on stage? Because, I mean, he does all the talking in terms of description of the children. I mean, is that a necessity, or is it just quite enough to, because he'll say, what's your name? And she'll say the name, and then how old are you? And she'll say so. So do you need much more than that?
I'd say not. No, I don't think anything more is needed. No,
because the fun of it is their reactions and so on. So obviously, yes, I mean, if they do something, a pratfall or something silly, or, they burst into tears or something like that, well, that's exactly what you would say. Oh, no, she's crying, or, whatever it might be. I think me personally, I think I sound like one of these kind of, I'm there, like I'm among the audience really when I do it, because it's just I'm reacting to what I'm seeing rather than trying to describe in detail. So it's more like that. Oh no, he's gone off with the present. Oh no, it's that kind of thing, which could be annoying. But fine. So now I was asked, because Put Yusuf's not being well and everything, he had a couple of things here that he wanted us to discuss. Panto advertising. Was that something that somebody wanted to talk about? What does that mean exactly? Does that mean, how do you find out about what panto or when it's being already described? And how do you find out about anything? How do you find out about what? What's
I
on in
am
the...
constantly looking at all the theatres locally and in the city of Manchester. I'm constantly looking what's on. I will check if there's an audio described performance. If that doesn't fit in with my diary, then I will try and get booked in as early as I can so I can get as close to the front as I can. I tend to go with a family member or a friend who's maybe able to describe little things. So I'm constantly looking on all websites what's on around, so that's how I find my information out.
What about any of you who might have, not much sight at all, and for whom it is quite difficult, and you rely on? What do you rely on? Do you rely on friends? Do you rely on an association, a blind association, or because that's one of the big things. Theatres always say to me, "Oh, well, we've advertised." And you go, "How did you advertise?" "Oh, leaflets." "Really? Leaflets? Not so useful." No. So, how would you like these things to be advertised in a helpful way?
I think most visually impaired people do have technology today. Most do. So accessing websites is reasonably easy for most visually impaired people, I would say. But for my local theatre, I know I keep talking about it. We do have good connection with the Berry Blind Society, and they're very supportive of each other. So.
That's great. That's really good to hear. Yeah, that's because I think that's a huge thing, actually. And do you tend to go, as you say, you go with somebody a sighted person, or with a member of the family?
Usually, yes.
And yes, and are you happy with how things work within the theatre? I mean, because obviously theatres are told how to behave, how to guide people, and so on. I mean, generally speaking.
Yeah, because I am on the board of directors at the Met Theatre, so don't want to blow my own trumpet, but the staff are very well trained. I could go there very comfortably on my own. I know I'd be met. I know I'd be guided to my seat correctly. Yeah, I know that doesn't happen in every theatre, but yeah.
No, that's lovely to hear. Yeah. Okay. So now, have we covered everything? I'm sure I haven't heard from everybody, but that's all right. That's all right. What else have we decided that? So we know that we don't want too much description. We know that we need to encourage touch tours where there aren't any, and make it possible for notes beforehand. And that's one of the joys of Panto, because they do run them for a long time. The difficulty is when you have something coming in just for a week, and that's not a Panto, a play or a show. That is the difficulty, because there isn't really time for the describer, if there is one, to view it, to write it up, to do all those things, to record it and everything else. So that is a problem, which is quite hard to get round. My view is that if something is touring the country, a description should be made. There should be a description right from the beginning, and it should tour with it, so that notes that were written for one place, Bury, for example, whatever it is, could then be picked up in Plymouth. And even if you have a different describer in Plymouth, but that script already exists, and that can be made available to people who have, bought tickets for that show.
I think that would be wonderful. Yeah. How could that ever be rolled out? Somebody would have to make that happen, wouldn't they? But that would be great.
I think I'm always saying the voice of the people is really what's important. So you've got ATG, they have so many shows going around the country. They need to be told that this is what has to happen in order for things to be really accessible. So they play somewhere for a week, but that script that was written in London or whatever it is sent to every theatre on that tour, so that it already exists. So obviously, that's not doing the description in situ, because you need to have someone doing that. But already, because the notes are so important, because you can listen to them over and over again, so that by the time you come to the theatre, you know everything. And then it depends on how, the local describer, how good they are, whatever. But that at least would mean that the information, the main kind of the intro to the show would be known. So, but I think I'm not going to say go to the Capitol and, cause a riot. But what you have to do, if you want things to improve, is to get in touch with these organizations like the ATG, like the Society of West End Theatres. Find somebody who likes to do that kind of thing and say, this is what we like. This is what we would like. Because otherwise, it's still a bit patchy, in my view, the kind of access.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask, do you present your notes in audio format or written before the show?
Well, it all depends. So obviously, when you're working for one of the bigger companies, you do. That's part of what you do. You write them, you record them, and then those recordings can be uploaded. So I do an audio thing, and you do that weeks before, and so it's on their website. So the notes can be on their website. Smaller theatres, much harder to do, and plus, some people are not necessarily used to recording that much. But if you've actually got the notes, in some format, word format, somebody will read them.
Or if they could be emailed to me, then I can access it myself. Yeah.
Put your voice activator thing on it, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that would be a great step forward to try and guarantee that you could always get. Because I know what it's like when something comes in on a Monday. You go and view it on a Tuesday, and then you're supposed to then do a rehearsal on the Friday for the thing on Saturday. And you're also a person with a life. This is the problem. There's never enough time. It would be a way of doing it, though. And certainly for Panto, it can work very well. There needs to be sort of group activity. That's what I always feel, that that you can't rely on people thinking about it. You probably are aware that a blind person, they'll talk to a blind person, then they'll turn away from the blind person, forgetting that blind person is standing there on their own at that point. It's like people need educating, even after all this time. They sort of do need educating about all the aspects that a visually impaired person needs to deal with.
Charmaine, I think that's absolutely right. And everything you said about having a voice and clamouring for what we need. I remember being on one of these calls previously a few months ago about the importance of pre-show notes. And, I think there needs to be more collaboration within the theatrical sector about, disseminating these. You mentioned ATG. They're one of I think the biggest theatre group in this country. They should perhaps lead the way on this. And we do need to clamour to sort of, positively collaborate with them to get them to do that, because it's a real incentive. And I do believe, actually, in a very time-pressured world, that pre-show notes would be really beneficial to most audience members, not just blind people. They're essential for blind people, but, they give you a way into the show. If you haven't had much time to read about it before, you talked about if we want to know if certain members of the cast, we might probably do know that before we go, but I would always look to that information in the pre-show notes. In absence of being able to read the programme in the theatre, I'd hope that any sort of significant casting information was in those notes. But but collaboration absolutely is the way forward.
And just not to be afraid. If you've got a good voice, obviously you've got a very good voice and very good energy. You do need it. And ATG, they say, oh, well, we provide audio description. Yes, but there's so much more attached to that. It's not just having someone there on the day to do the description. It is all the prep beforehand. And it's not difficult to do. That's the mad thing. There's a script, it's a production, it can be done, it can then be emailed all around the country, and that doesn't cost anything at all.
Yeah, and again, I wonder how, obviously we're all well versed in the merits of audio description and what an art it is and how important it is for us. But, I think, a lot of box office staff, for instance, in theatre, short term probably don't always know what it is. And that's a big problem, isn't it?
They don't know. Because that's the thing. I've worked in voice pretty much all my career, in television and all that. But the thing is, if you're invisible, people don't know you. And it's extraordinary. As soon as your face is on screen, everybody knows. But because AD is invisible, no, people don't think it through enough. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's one of the strange things about blindness, and I think it's not just AD, it's most of the things we do. You know, screen readers, the sighted world doesn't understand how we do what we do, and the importance of, you know, any, you know, hack or tactical, you know, screen readers, audio description, what we need to live our lives well, and how that would actually benefit the rest of the population if they knew about it. I actually went to Parliament to lobby MPs about the vision rehabilitation campaign that RNIB are running a couple of weeks ago. And I think this is the biggest problem. I mean, quite rightly, BSL has been made a language in recent years and is now recognised. And of course, people can see it happening, but people can't see audio description, do they? And we're all wearing our headsets. But, you know, it definitely needs, and you guys need more credit, as I was saying to Ros before, you know, you came on, that, you know, it's an art form, it's a real skill. So, you know, and done well, it's just brilliant. So thank you.
Well, pleasure. Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, if it's done well, you just feel great about it, and all of that. Actually, I better promote something quickly. Have you heard about a film called The Choral? It's a lovely film written by Alan Bennett. Well, I did the description. I would say to you, go and see it.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'll look out for that now. Amazing.
I think it's on. I mean, it only opened a couple of weeks ago. I think it's around.
Yeah, I think I might have heard of it, actually. Many things go through my my very busy iPhone, but yeah, no, that sounds great.
It's about a Yorkshire village in 1916 where they do an annual choral, and it's got all wonderful stars in it. Ray Fiennes, Roger Allam, Simon Russell, everybody. Nick directed it. And it's completely beautiful, and it's just, you know, the problem is, you know, who are we going to play? They're all Germans, you see, so they have to find somebody, a composer that they can sing his music, who isn't German. So they light upon what's his name? Elgar. So I mean, it's a sweet film. It's a really sweet film, and it's got an audio description on it. So if you want to go, I would recommend it.
And this is in cinemas now,
film.
Yeah?
That's in cinemas now. At the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
great tip.
Well, it's just such a nice film. I mean, sometimes there are films out there that, you know, they are described, but would you want to go and see them? You know, it's a question. This is a sweet film, very British, sweet film. Very nice.
All right.
Okay. Well, now, is there anything else that we desperately have missed that we should have discussed on the subject of pantomime? He's behind you. Is there anything anyone wants to say?
It's Charmaine again, just on the subject of publicity, because I didn't interject there. I think, as Tracy said, a lot of us are very attuned to our screen readers, and I use my iPhone all the time, but I certainly sign up to a lot of theatre mailing lists. So push notifications are really good for me. I don't want to go looking around websites, which may or not be very good in their access. So push notifications. I get the National Theatre mailing list, for instance. I live in northwest London. I can see things that I want to go and see, and I then click through. They've got a very good access page, and that just generally, most of the London theatres do that. I know it's different in regional theatres, and they're doing a good job with the resources that they have, but they often have access pages, and you can see what their access performances, how many audio described performances there are. So I'll just hop on there. And then the problem is that, you know, I can't book tickets very easily because I can't actually give out my payment details. I'm not able to read my card. So I'll get a very helpful friend to come along me as my +1 and book the tickets for me. And then I'll pay them for it.
I mean, one other problem is that a lot of shows with audio description are on a Saturday afternoon now. And there's such a choice that sometimes you can't see the one you want to see. So again, theatres could be encouraged to maybe think of another day than having everything on a Saturday afternoon. There was one initiative which the ADA, the association, started last year, which was to do programme notes, which would be specially written and recorded and then placed on the website of that theatre. So the Park Theatre in near Finsbury Park in London. So they've done that a few times now, which means that you get the notes with all the details that you need, and then that is then available to anybody who comes to see the show. They don't have audio description because, frankly, you know, it's expensive and they can't always do it and they can't afford it, but they can afford this. So this is like, as opposed to paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds for a description, it's a couple of hundred for someone
brilliant. Really good.
to write and record and put on the website, which means that everybody, wherever they decide to go, will get that. And that already gets you halfway there, so that the characters, the story, the background, all of that stuff. You have that before you get there. So there are ways, and we're trying to find ways of making as much accessible as possible. We keep moving away from Panto, but
I know, and I'm sorry, I'm going to move slightly away from Panto as well. But I've learned a lot today, and I am definitely going to go back to my local blind society. And I know a lot of people in the society go to the theatre locally and in Manchester, and I'm now going to say to them, please ask. Firstly, is there audio description? If there isn't, ask, is there pre-show notes? Is there a touch tour? And if enough of us keep asking for these things, these theatres are going to start to think, oh, this is something we should, we're missing some audience members here. Perhaps they're not buying tickets because we're not providing this. So, as a group, I think we need to be a bit more. And I am also going to go to the Bury Met Theatre and say, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, I know they've got a relaxed performance for certain children with certain disabilities. They've got a performance with sign language for our hearing impaired. Nothing for the visually impaired. So why have they not got pre-show notes, and why have we not got a touch tour? I am definitely going to do something about this. Yeah.
Well, armed with that information, they don't know. I think people would do it if they knew about it. I'm not saying, I don't think they're deliberately not doing it. They're just not thinking. No. That's the thing. So you just have to show them, tell them.
The sighted world doesn't know what we need, so we have to say what we need.
I think that's it, Tracy. And all this, all of us being able to get out to performances that we want to go to like this, that helps give people confidence and empower us. So it's like it's a good ball rolling. So we just have to be confident and ask for what we want. Absolutely.
And I am going to
absolutely
brilliant. Well done.
I worked with visually impaired people for 30 years. Well, since I started all this. And of course, it was always said that the deaf lobby are really loud. They know how to clench their fists and say what they want, even though you can't hear them. And whereas blind people was always, they're so much nicer, kinder. They don't want to make a fuss. It is time to make a fuss. It is time, in the nicest possible way, with smiles on your faces. Make a fuss.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah. Yes.
So now,
Veronika,
Panto villains. I think we've covered everything.
We've come to the end of our time.
Hello, where did you come from?
I've been here all the time. It's Ross here. Just telling you that we've come to the end of our We've come to the end of our hour.
Oh, that was brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you. It was very good to talk to you all.
And you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye. Okay.